Hello, hello. Kim, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Clark. How's it going this week?
Good. We stepped it up this time. We brought the intro music for
All
this
right.
live. So we're stepping our production game up little by little.
And
Uh,
the blue backgrounds, the matching blue backgrounds.
it's the with the Eiffel 65 song here. We're it's blue all around. But the info we have today won't make you blue. It'll make you hyped up. Hopefully, get you some more business. So that's as corny late night intro as I get. But we are talking getting more business from your clients. Uh, Underappreciated and under discussed topic. I think it came up on our last live where everyone wants new, and we again we taught from cold outreach to setting and running good meetings, so that's why. But there's a lot of recruiters out there that have active clients or inactive clients, which we consider maybe haven't closed the role in over a year. And it's how do we get more from there, right? The amount of time I think you and I have found our clients and even ourselves to kind of dig in more. And we thought we did great with an account because we have 5 placements, and turns out that they have 50 openings that we could actually attack and didn't realize that, right? So we're going to dive into all that. Kim has an awesome background. I mean, 30 years enterprise, mid-size, in staffing, in recruiting, breaking all sorts of accounts, gaining market share. So we're going to dive right into that.
Okay,
Um,
let's do it.
let's make it happen. All
Yes.
right. Well, let's
Right.
bring this up. All right.
Okay. So actually, Clark, I'm going to dive into
Go in.
this
Yeah.
stat really quick because it's really telling. I think to your point, staffing companies and recruiting companies, I use those words interchangeably, typically do a good job of getting customers. But then I think they get the shiny object syndrome, right? That they do usually and not so great of a job of keeping and expanding these customers, right? Because sometimes it can be hard. We start to get a customer, we don't know how they work. It can take us a while to figure out their process and actually start to get placements. And sometimes, we can get disillusioned or discouraged during that process and kind of give up and go, well, let's just go chase something else. And, maybe
Yeah.
that'll be better. But maybe let's reframe our mindset. So, would it shock you out there to learn that just a 5% increase in retention can actually boost your profits by 25 to 95%? You're probably going, what in the world? But think of it this way. Bain and Research says, and Forbes and some others out there, that there's actually a 60 to 70% chance of selling an existing customer. And 81% of people that go with a client and have a positive experience will stay with that client. So, I mean, those are some telling statistics right there that we have a lot of ground we can cover. And in the second bullet, it's really expensive to go out and get new clients. And you're probably going, well, why? What does that mean? How is that? Look at it this way. Within your company, you've got to hire salespeople, hire recruiters, back office. There's HR. There's all these, AP, AR. Sometimes there's a legal team. There's a lot of SG&A associated, and labor's very, very expensive, right? And think about it, Clark. Once you have a new recruiter or account manager, it takes them a while to get up to speed and get profitable at that desk level. So that constant, out there beating the bushes for new customers is expensive, right? When often we have a vein of gold that we can capitalize on the ones that are right in front of us. Would you
Yeah, I
agree?
think yeah, I definitely agree. I think what there's a balance, and I got pushed at this from my manager at Aerotech because I was like the getting more from current clients for what it just came natural to me because I was like it was just the ease of the conversation. I already knew them. I already had. So I think the push was like, hey, make sure you're still going out and get new because I was trying to milk everything I could from current clients as much as possible. I think that balance, which we'll get into, is
It is
you
a balance.
you also have to target the people that could actually feed you, right? And that's where we're going to get into some questions and making sure there's some of the you've done the right targeting. Look at the accounts where you can look at the ones that you've kind of maxed out, and that's what we'll get into a little bit. Yeah, there's definitely a lot that goes into it, but it's definitely easier to look at what you currently have first.
Yeah, you're right. It's a balance, that's for sure. You have to continually fill the pipeline with new, but not ignore what we currently have and get the most out of it. Figure you work so hard to get the account, like you said, so much easier and
Might as
warmer to
well.
reach out to the people that hey, we're already an approved supplier, we already have an MSA in place. Let's talk about how we can help you. But let's look a minute like loyalty versus retention, right? And we're all consumers, and the example I love to use here is buying a car. We've all been to a car dealership and bought a car, and let's face it, usually it's not so grand. So let's say every time we go X number of years and we want to go buy that new Ford F-150 pickup truck or whatever in the world it is, right? We may go down the street to the Ford dealership that we went to before, because they're convenient, they're there. I'll choke it down and buy the car, get in and get out. They may have retained me for that next sale, but I'm not necessarily loyal, because if the Ford dealership across town is going to treat me better, give me a more seamless experience, give me more value for my dollar, I'm going to go and ultimately go with them. So what we're after, retention's great, right? But loyalty actually measures how satisfied they are with the experience. And it basically takes our client base and turns them into advocates or evangelists or promoters for us, right? They start to do some of the sales and marketing pieces for us when they become loyal. They tell other people, right? And they stick with us and they spend more money. And it gives us a lot of growth opportunities for things like cross-sell and upsell. So ultimately, retention's great. We want it, but what we're after is loyalty, right? And think about it from a car dealership standpoint. Trust me, you'd jump if somebody across town was going to offer a better experience for you. What do you think?
It's so important. Loyalty is what you're striving for. That's
Yeah.
what I strive for in our businesses is loyalty. Loyalty doesn't mean I'm always capturing revenue from that person or that client. To your point, it could be referrals or I'm top of mind. Maybe if another recruiter talks to a digital recruiter alumni and they're like, hey, do you know who I should work with? Or I love your content. Who taught you that? Like, oh, you got to talk to Clark, right? That's client loyalty, right? That's like, it's top of mind.
Right.
Maybe they're not an active client, but I have a referral. I had that happen this week, and that's fine. Like I'm happy with that. So getting that loyalty, making that an aim, and what you can do, as you said, to provide a great experience, especially in recruiting, which is such a everyone complains about recruiters, right? There's such a low bar, there's such a low standard, or I should say, a low expectation that to get you definitely don't have to set Olympic records on the high jump to have client loyalty in recruiting. It's just you're gonna coming through. We're gonna talk about how you build that in the next slides, but that should be the aim. You do that and worry less about capturing the revenue right now. That's how you'll get plenty of market share and those referrals, right, from your current clients.
Exactly. Yeah, we're after people that are going to promote us,
Yep.
promote our brand, promote us, and advocate us, and help us bring business, to ourselves, where we don't have to constantly go out and and hit the bushes to get it. So let's try to put it down, and Clark, let's work together and put it into an action plan. What are some things that we can look at and do today in our staffing and recruiting business that can go and yield a little bit more? So the first one is, how do you know you have a problem if you don't ask, right?
Yeah.
And so many staffing recruiting companies actually don't do this. And we need to be collecting feedback. And I have to tell you, if you ask them, believe it or not, they will tell you.
Yeah.
So number one, I'd say we have to have a process for it, whether it's a process that's done through survey tools or a combination of in person. Is pretty powerful to sit in front of a customer and have them tell you some of the things that need improvement. You have to have thick skin, but realize that it's only going to help you and help your business, because they're going to be honest with you, right? And then ultimately reviewing those results and creating an action plan. So again, having a process to collect the data, but then also an action plan to fix it. And I think at this point, what you start to see is not only things you need to improve on, but you start to maybe see opportunities that you didn't even know were there. Like, hey, you help us in IT, but we need help, bringing in CPAs. It may uncover additional service offerings that you weren't aware of within that customer until you started asking. And Clark, I know you have some good thoughts on Net Promoter Score from your past history at Aerotech. So dive in with that.
Yeah, I mean, I have two thoughts. both on the NPS score, but also on even maybe capturing like testimonials and reviews. Is the it was great at Aerotech to have that. It was nervous when I first heard of it, and then I thought I'd get feedback, but then I was in skilled trade, light industrial staffing, recruited and then sold it, and the industry standard for that niche was like in the negative percent or the single digits. Right, it's crazy. And then I like world class is above 70% because of kind of just the way they do the grading system. Like 70% is world class. The next thing I know, we had one of our normal team meetings, and they announced who got rated by clients or candidates, and my clients rated me world class NPS score, and I was like, whoa, that was like super validating to for Aerotech to send that out. It gives a lot of um it just gave a lot of validation, right? And it's something I can leverage and also know that like, okay, like the approach I'm taking with current clients is definitely working. Like so keep doing it. I can kind of go back to them. I mean, it created a great meeting. It's like, hey, thank you for submitting, or whatever and all that, right? Create another meeting opportunity. It's huge, right? And for smaller firms, find a way to kind of collect that. Kind of going into testimonials. I've been asked like, when should I ask for testimonial or how? Like, is it after the guarantee, the start date, after a year? I'm like, don't focus on how long the placement stays. Focus on the process of getting to that start date because ultimately that's what we get paid for is presenting the candidates to get hired. So have your clients talk about how it was working with you, right? The experience as we talked about earlier, right? That's what you want to get in the testimonials because ultimately that's what your future clients want to see that you're a recruiter that's great to work with, that's on it, that gets them, that gets the space that they're in because that's typically what they're missing before they meet you.
Yeah, and to your point, Clark, you're right. I think in person's powerful because it gives you a chance to get in front of the customer and really get it face to face. But also surveys, we would do those where I was at Hayes twice a year
Yep.
and collect that data. Sometimes it was anonymous, and you'd get people to open up a little bit more than maybe they would if you were right in front of them. But it helped us expose, patterns of areas. It's usually not that you're failing in a bunch of different areas and the world's blowing up. It's usually little areas or little pockets that you'll see patterns, right, that you need to focus on in your business and improve. So
Yeah.
it's great. Sometimes we have, I'll call it blind spots. We don't
Absolutely.
see, where we have our flaws. So
Yeah.
it's great. Set up a process, set up a frequency, and it will set you free. But hand in hand with that, number two is analyzing our turnover metrics, right? Customers, we're not going to keep the same customers forevermore. We would like to, but dynamics change. And let's face it, guys, sometimes we part ways with a customer because their business model, their process, their rates, whatever it is, may not mesh well with our business model. So what I'd say is analyze the reasons that clients no longer buy from you. Is it they don't buy from you, or we had to politely step away from them, right? So what's causing the churn? Why is it happening? What are the patterns? And then revisit customers maybe that you haven't worked with in 5 years or 6 years or 4 years. Let's say you exited that customer. Just because they were a bad customer, a few years ago doesn't mean that they are today, right? Think of it this way. People change, companies change, process dynamics, pricing changes, their internal talent acquisition can have a complete makeover. So what I'd say is companies that churn, understand the churn, the reason why, and then also go back and revisit it periodically because you may have an opportunity at that point. And then always what I learned is make sure you've got a detailed history of all this in the CRM because you certainly don't want, Clark, like some new account manager calls into a company and they get an earful about how we're not
Yeah.
working with that company more for A, B, and C. So again, history and data will set you free, and we always want to be prepared when we call. But how about you, Clark? Have you actually revisited customers, a few years later when they weren't so good of a fit back, say in 2020?
Yeah. I think what I like about this is the churn rate. This is so important to get on the discovery call, actually. Like, so use staffing as an example. I would go and talk to companies that were looking for general labor or forklift drivers and, like, oh, we have people leave all the time. I'm like, what's your turnover rate? Right. And I'd actually make them go get the hires that they had made maybe through the other agency, who worked out after, say, 2 weeks or a month, right? Or whatever metric that company was looking for. And oftentimes I see, well, 2 out of 10 work or 3 out of 10. So it'd be like 20, 30% uh, like success rate. So what, 70-80% churn rate. I'm like, that's crazy high. I was like, what would it do if we got that to 60 to 70%? And we would do the math, and it would be, I mean, it would save them hours and hours of billing and wasted costs and everything. So that was always like, we kind of established that goal as the benchmark, then qualified the roles that way. And then we would, we would hit it, and then we would review and kind of get that right. So kind of it starts with like, what are their current metrics? Maybe they have them, maybe they don't, or you figure it out with them, and then you have targets to hit, and then that you do that with one department. Well, then you could get into other departments, right? You could leverage that also, maybe with other clients or stuff like that as well. Like that's kind of what I was like with churn rate, and like what I think of when I see this, because it was so powerful to set in the beginning. So when you actually do come through, there's no choice but for them to give you more business.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, but to your point, you have to understand it. You have to know it. You have to ask. You have to look at it. So, and
Mhm.
again, I think to your point, it uncovers patterns, right?
Yeah.
Of where, we have opportunity and potentially where we can improve. So,
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
deal. Okay, here's one of my favorites, number 3 of the top 10. I think the days of the staffing generalist are all but dead. And what I mean by that is you really need to, whatever industry you're supporting, become a student of that particular client's industry and business, right? And customize the experience to that. So today, customers want us to educate them, right? Every particular industry has their own subtle nuances of issues, problems or challenges or things that they're trying to figure out, right? Whether it's healthcare or manufacturing, DoD manufacturing, they all have specific issues to their industry. So we need to become a student of that, right? And be able to go out and read. There's tons of information online, as you know, to get educated on their business so you can help them, right? And customize your experience to them. So it's pretty powerful to say, hey, let's say I'm selling into General Dynamics, IT business there. It's pretty powerful to say, hey, I understand your challenges with finding secret cleared personnel. Here's how we've done it for Lockheed Martin and how we've done it for HP Federal. And conversely, here's how we can take people that don't have a clearance and get them cleared and hold that to our company cage code. Here are some of our success stories with that. It speaks volumes that you understand their industry, because the client mind's thinking, great, I don't have to train them on my industry. It's less risk to go with them because they already understand my industry, and they can provide value to me because they've done this before and helped me solve some of my problems, some of my issues. So I think this one is strong. If you really align with the industry, understand it, and be able to show the results and the impact that you've delivered for other customers that are similar in that space. What do you think, Clark?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with getting more market share from a current client, because
Yeah.
sometimes you can get, well, if I specialize, I think I specialize just in accounting and finance, but they don't know maybe that I can place engineers or sales as well.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting balance with us becoming a specialist. What I do think it's I'm a big advocate of it. But more importantly, I think that what sums all this up is invest in what you're working on, right? Invest in the solutions that you're looking to provide and the problems you're looking to solve for your clients. That's
Exactly.
what they want to see, is that investment into your craft. And that could be a super specific niche. That could be maybe a couple things that you specialize in, right? It could be that you handle all the departments in a logistics company. That's fine, right? As long as you kind of own that and you kind of speak on that, that's where I see, some recruiters, they bounce around, they do one placement and then kind of bounce around. But there's no real like value prop, right? Why do people buy from you? And even if you can cover different departments, say, hey, we have a dialed in process. We're gonna actually really be more of a consultant, and we don't necessarily need to be a vertical expert, but just the way that we dive in and recruit and match make and everything like that, we're gonna figure this out and get you the right person. And so you just really have to own whatever you're in, and it could be vertical, it could be department. Just but be clear, be adamant about it, and show that you're invested in doing that. Right? If you do cover a few different skill sets, really highlight your recruiting process and how it
Exactly.
kind of really fit in for any department or any manager that they have, whether it's C-level or mid-level management, whatever that looks like. And then, yeah, what testimonials we covered earlier, definitely strike while the iron is hot, right? We talked about that right as you make a placement, and we have them talk about the process and what it's like to work with you, because you can leverage that with different departments and kind of, hey, I worked with so and so. This is what they said, yada yada. So,
Yeah, definitely. We're
yeah,
saying, yeah, educate the client, right? Just be familiar with the industry. And to your point, if you work with in the healthcare industry and you place, registered nurses and inpatient coders, well, then be able to go and explain to your client, hey, this is the work that we've done to place inpatient coders and RNs. This is our process. And to your point, Clark, this is how we recruit, how we find them, and these are our results of delivering for other hospitals. So
yep,
definitely not saying go all in and just go industry specific and ignore every other industry, but I'd say wherever it is you are focused in terms of industry, get to become a student of it. So you understand it better, can have meaningful conversations and share meaningful results.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I just want to throw Kaylin up. She asked if it's recorded and will there be a link to access? Yes, it'll be on each of our profiles, me and Kim, after this, and we'll also post it on the Digital Recruiter YouTube account. So just so you know, but that's just
Great.
want to answer that real quick.
All
All
right.
right, let's move on. What map a consistent client experience? Talk to me, Kim. What do we mean here?
Well, look at it this way, right? I think nobody, especially in business, but nobody beyond the age of 10 really likes surprises anymore, right? So what I'd say is, we need to, think about it. Consistency builds trust, right? What we're trying to do is if we have a customer and we're delivering in, IT, we certainly want to have the same exact experience in finance and accounting, right? We want to have the same recruitment approach, the same presentation of candidates. We want to have the same process, say, to launch a new account, the same process all the way through from the front end of sales through the back office. And I think explaining to the customer, here's what it's about, managing expectations. Here's what the process is going to look like working with us, right? Here's how we're going to go and lay things out in accordance with you. And again, we're not telling them, we're working with them. How do you want to have presentation of candidates? How do you want us to follow up? How do we want our billing and invoicing and timekeeping to look? All those things. And we work at it together. But the point is we deliver consistency from sales all the way to collections. And I think this is even more important if you actually operate in a company that has more than one office. They don't want to have one experience in Orlando, Florida, and have a completely different experience from us in Dallas, Texas, right? So again, like that consistency, getting variation and variability out of the equation, so they get that same type of outcome, use the same replicatable process every time, so we get a consistent outcome. Because the more consistent we are, the more trust it builds with them. And to that point, not only beyond building the trust, it's gonna get customer buy-in, right? They're gonna be like, wow, this place is organized. They understand what they're doing. I'm not left in the dark wondering what's going to happen next, or when they're going to give me a candidate, or how they're going to follow up and support my contractors on assignment. They've already told me and gotten my feedback on it, so I know what to expect as a client. So, what do you think,
It's
Mark?
I have so many thoughts. Uh, I mean, you did an amazing job of highlighting why it's important for the recruiter to be consistent.
Yeah.
What I want to highlight is don't expect the client to be consistent per department or per location. So, with that last piece of or the second part, manage expectations, but the last never assume, right? Do not assume that if you get referred to another hiring manager, they're going to operate and be in line with the one that you worked with and had success with. Like the manage expectations is like, yeah, this is how we operate, but it's more this is how we had success with this department. And this is what we need to do to replicate that success to get the result you want. Now, some managers are that you get referred to are down and they're okay with it, and some are like, yeah, whatever, and they're a nightmare, right? To become it, and so manage your own expectations. Some departments it might be really hard to get market share from, right? And some are going to be okay. So you have to qualify just like you would new business. Qualify those referrals. Qualify when you get market share. It's as important, if not more so, than the initial discovery, because that is how you kind of set the expectations. Like, hey, we didn't change our process. It's like the difference here was the hiring manager and like how they approach. Like this is how we win in recruiting, and this is why. So that's just something to keep in mind and kind of as you approach it, trying to get more business.
Mhm. Great point. And actually, Clark, one thing I think we probably missed here is that everything we're talking about today applies to the client side, but you can also apply it to the recruiting, to the candidate side, right? Candidates want us to present them with a kind of a mapped out, consistent process so we communicate with them, they know what to expect, right? And
Yeah.
also at the very beginning, collecting, candidate feedback on how we're doing. So not only does this apply to the client side, a lot of it applies to the candidate side too,
It's
just as a side note.
it's all mirrored, yeah, from the data entry, from what's your ideal role, what's your ideal compensation, what does your career growth look like. I've coached on some recruiters, and we've used the messaging ourselves. Hey, what does the next jump look like for you? Is it external? Is it an internal promotion? Right? Because everyone's always asking, where do you want to go? But sometimes people want to see if they can get promoted internally first. So we've actually like used that with some candidate messaging, especially with some automation, and we've gotten some amazing responses. So it's like, there's no internal growth. Actually, there is internal growth, and if I don't get promoted by September 30th, right, then I'm going to be looking elsewhere and stuff like that. So like, there's so many things you could do if you kind of just look at the landscape and put yourself in the person's shoes, right? That applies to the client and the candidate side.
Yep.
So
Good point. I
that
like
was a
that. That's a
super
great way to
quick tangent.
put the bow on it. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Find their pain and eliminate it. Ooh, maybe my favorite one.
Okay. So, this is where, if the more experience we get, I think the more we're guilty of it, right? We often assume we know what their troubles, their issues, their problems and challenges are, and we're pretty quick to jump in and give a solution. Right. And what happens when you tell somebody what's wrong with their business, that they're like, whoa, they kind of rebuff it. Right. They're like, yeah, hey,
I
don't, not so fast. Don't tell me, what's wrong with my business. We need to make certain that we're not assuming anything and jumping to conclusions, and ask the questions and listen, right?
mm,
We want to guide them down the path of self discovery of what their issues are. What I mean by self discovery is, if we ask questions, open ended, thoughtful questions, ultimately, they're probably going to realize that what they're doing right now probably isn't working so well, or it could be working better, which is going to be so much more powerful than us telling them that, but getting them to realize it on their own through open-ended questions, right?
mm.
So
It's
again, I'm sorry, jump in real quick. Jump in.
No, go ahead. I'm doing the opposite of what the slide is saying. It's telling me to do.
I have some jump in, Clark, because I have some key questions that I want to leave people with on this slide that they can ask to dig in
Yeah.
more and try to find client share. But you jump in first. Jump
I'm
in.
gonna get back to listening. Uh, this is all you ever have to do to
Yeah.
have success in sales is just ask the right questions and listen. And you might have the answer right away, you might not, and it's okay. It's okay to say I don't know or let me go find out. And then that side, understand the business, not just the hiring needs, is how you set yourself up for future business because you're getting the intel that you need to make your strategic moves as necessary. I mean, lack of intel is what torpedoes almost all sales and business development efforts for agency recruiters because you have no idea, you're just shooting blind and you've missed out because you haven't taken the time, any opportunities you had to ask the right questions and listen. So that's
Yeah,
all.
and yeah, don't assume. I mean, again, the more experience we get, the more we assume, and that's where I have to check myself all the time.
All the
Don't
time.
assume, don't jump in, don't jump in and try to give them the answer. Lead them down the pathway of asking questions, and you know what, I might just learn something, and 9 times out of 10, I actually do. So, a couple of things I always want to know.
Mm.
What are some of the biggest challenges that they have right now in hiring talent? Because trust me, they do have challenges, especially if they're in that upper end professional space of engineering, IT, healthcare. They've got challenges. We just need to hear it. What are the changes that could be affecting their business, right, over the next 3 to 12 months? There's always changes. It could be
Hmm.
a restructuring, a divestiture, a move into a market, move out of the market, a new product launch. I mean, changes basically create two things that are opportunity for us: growth or trouble. Always look for growth or trouble. Growth, for obvious reasons, they're going to need to hire, but trouble, things that are going to upset or upend or cause upheaval in the business, are great areas to not only place perm people, but place a lot of contractors,
Yes. It's great for,
right?
it's a great
Moves
call for
out of the market,
staffing.
move into a market, an integration, merger acquisition. Oh yeah, completely. That's where contractor right for contractors, the ground. Top 3 to 4 business initiatives that they have going on over the next 3 to 4 months. That could be anything. It's different than changes, right? And then what challenges they're currently having today with their current workload, their current projects, and what are some of the ways that you can help them get through that? So okay, so great. We'll move on from that one. And this one sounds kind of pretty trite, but it's really not. Okay, think of all the places that it's not easy to do business with. Have you ever gone to the DMV? Have you ever called the IRS? Have you ever actually had to call the airlines because you just couldn't get something done via online on your phone with them? And you'll find that, I guess you'd agree with me, Clark. Hopefully, you want it to be a good experience, but usually it's pretty darn bad, right?
Yeah.
So, from a staffing standpoint, staffing companies, at least the ones that I worked for that were larger, kind of got caught up in themselves and said, no, this is how we do it. Right? This is our process. And the customer's going, well, I don't want to work with 2 different people for my contract and perm needs. I just want to work with one account manager for my contract and perm needs. And we were like,
Yep.
well, this is how we do it. So the point is we need to think about it. Are we customized, convenient, easy to do business with? Have we innovated and automated the things that we can to make it easy? Are we actually giving them a good experience? Because there's one more stat from Bain & Research: 61% of customers that have one bad experience with a business will jump ship and go to another provider. 61% will leave after one bad experience. So that's a pretty darn high stat. So this is why this one's so important. Jump in, Clark. You had a few pieces here.
The under promise over deliver is key, but the one bad experience, it's not that the candidate left or left before the 90-day guarantee, or the candidate ghosted or no showed or didn't accept the offer. It's how the recruiter responded.
Boom.
That's why they left.
Yeah.
And so you have control. You don't have control sometimes over the scenarios, right? We're matchmakers, we're messengers. Like that's what we are. That's who we are. But you can control your reaction and your response and how you approach it. Starting by under promising and over delivering is big, but in the previous slide, like listen, be authentic, be transparent, be on it, right? That timely, like, let me look into this, or I don't know what happened, all that stuff. I mean, it's so important, right? To be measured, to remove emotion from it as much as possible, because sometimes we take it personally as recruiters, but again, we're matching client and the candidate, right? So we want to think of them first. Yes, obviously stuff can affect us, or a candidate no show, it's like, oh, all that work, and I thought that was gonna be a guaranteed placement and yada yada, but like really take yourself out of it for a second, and then that's kind of how you respond. I think recruiters take things so personally and then start lashing out, or don't see in their tone. I mean, nothing worse than being passive aggressive. It's absolutely brutal, right? So just again, this is your opportunity when something goes wrong to be a professional, seek to understand, and that is where you could actually leverage and create even more business from yourself. It's actually turning initially a bad experience, a bad situation, and showing and revealing your character as a recruiter, as an agency, through how you handle the problem resolution.
Yeah, because you're right. You can recover if there is an issue, as long as, to your point, Clark, if you own it, you admit it, you admit the error, you do your best to correct it, and then replace +1. Maybe you offer them something is an added bonus, for the issue that happened, right? If you recover well from it, from an honesty and resolution standpoint, it is a great opportunity to go and get more business. And sometimes you're right, we forget about that point when you do mess up, because we all are going to mess up at some point, right? That, owning it and being transparent, fixing it, and putting in also a corrective action if you can, to ensure it doesn't happen again. Sometimes in people business, we can't do that, but sometimes we can. It's a screw up on our part, say back office or something like that. Put a mechanism in to try to prevent it from happening again, and explain that to the customer.
And take ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, take ownership for what you need to take ownership, and don't take ownership for things if it's outside your team, outside your agency. Right? Know where to take ownership as well, right? You don't want to just take blame. If the client had a role to play, highlight that, right? Take your ownership first, but also highlight what they could have, what areas they missed as well. And you're going to get a lot more respect from them if they work with you again, or if they don't, right? You have to have that internally. And if you have a team, your team's going to see that. And those moments also dictate how much buy-in or respect you get from your team. So.
That's a great point, Clark, and I didn't think about that. You're right, but that's how where leadership comes in. The team sees how you handle those type of situations where there has been a major error or mistake or a fall down, and that's what they're going to emulate. They're not going to do what you say; they're going to do what they see. So that's a great point for teaching and learning of the folks that are on the team.
I learned it the hard way. I got punked a couple times, and I wasn't sure how to respond. And then I saw my team, my recruiter's reaction. I was like, "Oh, I got to fight." And even if I knew it was a Hail Mary, I still had to do something, right? And that's how I learned, and I got better and better at it. And it is. It's a kind of a rite of passage. That is why I did like working in person with a team at the time, because you can't fake that, right? The disappointment that they would have and all that. And one thing I realized is I can always have their back. Like, I can't always make the placement happen or whatever, but I can have their back. And that's sometimes you might lose this round there, but overall you can win the whole fight if you get buy-in and work on the next roles. So
yeah. Hey, Clark, if we have time, I'll give you my horror story on that slide. If we have time at the very, very end, it was a bad one, but
okay.
If we have time, we'll get to it.
All right, we'll cover it. I think we will. So we'll cover stories and all that, and kind of make it a little bit more conversational at the end.
Yeah, we'll add in our stories. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, gaining client share and relevance. I mean, this goes into, I think, probably the theme of all of this, right? That we're talking about. So, yeah, give us your take.
Okay, a few things here. I'd say is if you can't remember, if you can only remember a few takeaways from today, here's one that I would remember, and I'll start by saying this. A wise man once taught me in staffing, we compare ourselves to ourselves and think we're doing a great job, and then we find out our competition's blowing us away in our accounts because we never ask the right questions, right? So what I would say is remember that to ask this. We want to understand the entire opportunity at our client site. So I'd ask, what is the total agency spend for direct hire, right? What's the total agency spend for contractors? And then the third question is, what are the total number of contractors in the organization? So those, I think, are three really key things. We want to understand the entire pie, not just an area. We'll place, think about it this way. We'll make 10 perm placements a year and maybe have 10 contractors on assignment, think we're doing a great job. Then we learn our competition has 100 contractors and they've made 35 direct hire placements for the year. So ask the question, total number of contractors that are on assignment in the organization and the department, total amount of staffing spend for perm agency hires and contract agency hires. Gives you a pretty darn good idea of what you're shooting for, right? If it's, 10 million a year, okay, it's a small account. If they're spending 100 million a year on staffing services for a contract, that's what you need to be aiming for, at least a percentage of that. I would also want to know too, who is their top supplier and why? Right? How do they define the top supplier? Usually they can tell you that, especially if you're talking to someone at an MSP, procurement, HR, or a C-level. Why is that person the top supplier? That's going to give you a pretty good idea of what you need to do and what you need to emulate. And why is this important? Again, learning all the departments and divisions so we can go in and sell our entire suite of products, right? We can sell IT, FA, because whatever happens, usually, Clark, what I've seen in my world is we'll do a great job of selling into application development, and we put our blinders on and we don't ask about the PMO, network and infrastructure, database admin team, and find out that there's tons of placements going on in those areas, but we didn't bother to ask all the different departments or all the different divisions or all the different locations, because you and I both know, maybe easy to find people in Orlando, Florida. Maybe the company's really struggling getting talent in Boise, Idaho. And again, we just didn't ask, and we missed a great opportunity for client share. And I think to put a bow on this, why this is so important, especially as we move through the environment that we are, where it's a little tentative out there. What happens, Clark, when times get tough and they look at supplier list or suppliers they're working with? What do they typically do?
Trim it down, trim the fat.
Well, they trim the fat down. And the first way they trim the fat down is they look and see, okay, what staffing providers, recruiting suppliers are significant and relevant to us? And you're significant and relevant to them in large part by how many people you place. It's a lot harder to get rid of, Clark Incorporated staffing if they've got, 75 people on assignment placing 30 direct hires a year versus if Clark Staffing Incorporated places 5 people grand total per year. So we want to get so entrenched in their business where we become significant and relevant, and therefore we're not expendable anymore, right? And again, this is a huge opportunity, and probably my favorite slide of where we tend to, as staffing people, not ask the questions, and we struggle, and we never, ever get that penetration. So again, some key things to remember there. Clark,
yeah, getting the intel. I mean, that's what it goes back to, right? Getting the intel. I think ways to do this are, if you're local, get lunch, take them to lunch. These are great reasons to follow up, right? Whether you're bringing them bagels and having a meeting, or take them to lunch or a happy hour. This is you don't want to maybe necessarily maybe lead with business at those conversations or at those meetups, but make it casual, make it informal, right? Like, get creative in the ways that you're asking this, so it doesn't look like AI asking them questions.
It's not interrogation. You're right. It's not interrogation. It's
exactly.
a conversation.
Yeah, they're not. We're not on first 48 here. So make them comfortable. Have it be relaxed, and get creative with the ways that with your frameworks of finding out the intel. It's a business relationship. You're curious about their business, and again, most recruiters are just so worried about that one role that you're gonna. Work is a big part of anyone's life. So they'll give you, if you're talking to the right person, they'll give you the information. They'll be happy to have a conversation, right, around this stuff. And the more kind of casual and you can be while doing this, the better. It does take some reps, but that's what you should be shooting for.
Yeah, and the more spend and the more placements you have with that particular customer, you really become relevant, and it's just too darn painful to exit you as one of their key staffing vendors. You've got too much going on, too many projects, too many placements. You're a crucial, pivotal piece of their business at this point. So again, to Clark's point is great. It's not the interrogation lamp, and not everyone will know the answers to all these questions. Total staffing spend for agencies, total number of contractors. What I found is I usually ask the question to several people, and when I start to move up the chain of VP and C level and director level, they tend to know those answers. A lot of times your manager at the desk level may not. So you won't gather all that information day one, but what I'd say is just start asking it so you can start to put the pieces of the puzzle together and realize, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here I'm not capturing. Okay.
Absolutely. Well, let's what we got next? Deliver value add services.
Oh, this is also one of our favorites, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we mentioned earlier that clients kind of want us to educate them. I think the days of just giving them a placement kind of shows that you're just like everybody else, right? Any staffing company can give them, recruiting company, a placement, and that's it. What we want to do is, give them more than that, right? And I always start by asking, what can we do or provide you that would be valuable to you and your organization? Believe it or not, they'll tell you. I've had folks that say, hey, Kim, I need industry data. I need market data. I need salary data. I've had folks that have said, hey, our team needs a workshop. We have no idea how to interview people. Or when it comes to onboarding, we're terrible at it. Or when it comes to, leadership training. So we've actually done in the past, webinars to go in and train their internal folks on something that could be useful or needed, right? So again, we're not necessarily getting paid for these things, but it does come back to us in the long run. Articles, information that's out on the internet related to their industry and their business, pretty strong to send that to them, right? To be able to say, hey, I'm not just going to call you and every 3 months and go, hi, this is Kim. There's no value in that. Show them something that they can use that's going to gain them knowledge, right? And as an example, I have a real life example. I was telling Clark that happened yesterday. I had 2 prospects actually that I hadn't spoken to in a few months. I sent them both a document I created. It was an account profile. One replied back, believe it or not, and said, I'm ready to take you for a test drive. Let's set something up. I'm ready to use your
You got a new car.
So that was great, right? The second one said, Kim, I'm fine. I don't need anything right now. He goes, but you know what? I'll tell you what. I just took your email and sent it to my team as an example of how to follow up with a prospect by giving them knowledge and information that they can use. So I'll highlight that, again, follow up with them, whether it's articles, whether it's, things you see online, something about their industry, regulation or legislation that's happening in their business, in their world. Send it to them. It shows you care, it shows you're adding value, and it's much more effective than just calling up going, hi, I'm Clark, hi, I'm Kim. And then finally, I think candidate marketing here is also a great way to value add. A lot of companies, at least where I came from, we got a little sloppy on that. And that's a great way to call someone and give them something other than the hi, how you doing call. Right?
And
It's enough. Jump in.
Yeah, it's what you get in the beginning too. What roles are you always kind of looking for? What titles are you always interested in seeing and looking at? Because, we talk to candidates in this realm all the time, right? So you might not have someone at the top of your head or someone in mind, but if you're taking those notes, that intel, putting into the CRM, then if you do have someone comes across your desk or your recruiter brings you someone, and you have an immediate NPC, and everyone's doing cold outreach NPC, which is fine and can work, but you have way higher percentage of success rate with a warm, with an active account or your top 20 account. That's like where you already have established what the exact skill sets they're looking for an NPC. And that's how I got a ton more business, right? If you come across a mechanic that has this electrician, I'll interview them today, right? So I'll go back to my team. If we have someone like this, they'll interview them today, and we could make that happen pretty quick. And sure enough, they would, right? It's how we broke a lot of new accounts as well. How we got more, people at certain clients. It's just by kind of finding that, taking note of it, and let your recruiting efforts, do the rest. It's huge, and I always love the compensation because rates and compensation has been it's been a battle since the beginning of currency. So it's the more that you can educate, right? Never assume that they know exactly what people just typically throw out a number. The numbers might not have moved in 15 years, and in this market, if they haven't changed in 4 years, they're behind, right? So give them that stuff, right? Give them for free because you're educating them to drive them to where you need to be, which is, hey, I got roles, I need you to work on them. You have them exclusively because I know you're the go-to person. You're also planting seeds that shows that like you are a consultant. So when they talk about hiring, any other time that comes up without you there, they're like, oh, hold on, let me go ask Kim, let me go ask Clark. Right, and like that creates another meeting opportunity and another opportunity in general, right, to add value and potentially get some business. So be the person that's top of mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Out of sight's out of mind. Like that example I gave a couple minutes ago. Would that individual have reached out to me to want to go schedule something? And had I not pinged them with an article yesterday, with a profile, the answer to that is 99% no. He would.
You're inspiring me.
Yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind in staffing. And what I say too is some recruiting companies produce gold on their own website. Some have like an amazing blog and amazing articles that they put out there anyway if they're large enough to have some type of a marketing arm. And I see staffers, recruiters, and account managers not leverage all that free, I'll call it just free low-hanging fruit material to provide their clients, and they could. So if you have work for a company that has articles on their blog, go harvest those, and the ones that make sense, start sending them to your customers. Hey, thought of you. This reminds me of your industry. Thought of you. This is an area that I know that you're struggling with right now. So again, if your company produces this type of information, seize it, capitalize on it, and use it. Right? It's free, and you don't have to do any work other than kind of maybe summarize it and hit the send button. If your company doesn't produce anything, a great website that you can sign up for, and it's free. SHRM.org, Society of Human Resource Management.org. They come out with a daily newsletter that talks about everything from, hiring all different types of skill sets to all types of client challenges, industry challenges, new legislation that's on deck. And I literally find something almost every day on SHRM.org in the newsletter that comes to me that I can take, repackage, and send to a client where it could be, useful to them, and it speaks to their industry or speaks to their trouble. So again, hot tip there.
Absolutely. And on this slide, Justin is a great question. And what's up, Justin? Justin's awesome. His company, Titan Placement Group, him and Pete, they're building the powerhouse over there. But he asked, what are some of the best ways to add value beyond candidate profiles, articles, work in email? Are these follow ups of first outreach? So we're talking about client retention and getting more market share out of your current clients. So it's following up relationships that you already know, right? Or you know that there's potentially more opportunity, right? Maybe they promised, hey, if you fill this one role, we got 20 more roles for you. Well, then you fill the role. It's like, well, we maybe would need the other 19 in a few months, right? It's like, so how do you kind of bridge that gap? And I think the what Kim said, articles on maybe like an account list, or you could send like Justin, like what if they struggle with like interview process, or here's like an interview guide, or a first interview versus a second interview, right? How to interview for skills versus how to interview for intangibles, like just
Yeah.
stuff that you could probably come up with in 2 seconds with a paragraph
Yeah.
input on AI, right? And create an outline for them. You could create it, right? You could say, hey, I created this. Do you want it? Or you could just send it to them directly if you know that it was something maybe they had struggled with or they weren't sure of, or how to craft offer letters, or looking at insurance, or if people, if maybe companies are losing out because their health benefits aren't as good as their competitors, right? Like give them information on kind of how to maybe get better health insurance, better coverage as a
Yeah.
company, so they don't lose out on candidates. I know that's big, and especially in candidate driven markets, like especially in construction, that's a big one. So I don't know, just
Yeah.
kind of spitballing different ideas there.
Also, too, Clark, I love it. But in addition to that, maybe even do a LinkedIn Live or like a quick webinar. LinkedIn Lives are easier to do
Yeah.
than a webinar to say, hey, if they're struggling on how to interview people or they're struggling on onboarding or retention, just a quick LinkedIn Live 30-minute session. Invite your prospects, invite your current customers to it. They're going to show up and they'll actually remember you. It keeps it top of mind. If you ever do create articles yourself or you have your own blog, invite your prospect to be part of it or your client to be a part of it. Hey, want to interview you for XYZ post or XYZ article. They're going to be flattered
Yeah.
that you asked them, and 9 times out of 10 they're actually going to do it. Another thought, Justin, is I had a client that said to me, hey, I want to talk to peers in my industry. For instance, I'm doing an Oracle e-business suite implementation. I need to talk to somebody else who's done that, a peer. I have questions. So you will have clients today that are working in a certain area. Maybe introduce them to some of your other clients to where they can kind of share ideas, share their issues, share their problems in a forum. I've gotten some good luck with that before. So I think the key is, Clark, you gave some great ideas, and I think we put a few more together. Ask them what would be important to them. But I
That's
think
what I
there's
was
a
just
lot
gonna
of
say.
gold, a lot of gold out there if we just go and mine, things like SHRM or a lot of the AI pieces and articles that are out there on that. There's gold out there. We just kind of have to go find it and package
Yeah,
it.
just ask them. Yeah, what
Yeah.
would be helpful if I created for free for you, right? What would be helpful?
Boom.
Um, cool.
All
You're
right.
welcome. You're welcome, Justin. Thank you,
Thank
man.
you. Thanks for asking,
All right.
Justin. That's good. All right. This one, guys,
Yep.
this one sounds so easy. You're going, come on,
This is
fall
the
off.
hardest part.
Yeah, we got as an industry, I think, a little bit on the complacent side back, during COVID, relying on the email and everything like that. I think the more live touch points we can have with someone, the better. Face to face still is just the way to go if you can. Whether it's video, even a phone call is better than an email. In person, of course, is great. Make sure that we're communicating, building those relationships, staying top of mind, being in front of them. I like with where Clark is going. We don't want to always just call up and go, hey, got a job order for me, right? It's not about what's in it for us. It's about what's in it for them, right? What can we do that's going to help them and add value and drive toward what their concerns are, right? Versus that almighty job order. And the good news is, if we think long term with that long term mindset and approach it that way, it ends up coming back to us anyway in the form of job orders,
Yeah,
right?
and then they're gonna ask like, hey, actually, you know what? Like we're working. We need we need another AE, or think about expanding this territory, or we got a project coming. We should probably get going on this engineer role search sooner rather than later. Like let's work on it right before they ever posted it or anything like that. That's how you get roles that are never posted, which are typically the best roles to work on.
Mhm.
Uh, And so it's just, again, leading with them, as you said, what's in it for them. Meetings can be just to catch up, right? Even at the end, I've always said some of the best managers at when I worked at Aerotech, they maybe asked a question about business at the very end, but the rest of it was, catching up. The person felt heard, right? Maybe in their job, they're overwhelmed and no one, pays attention or listens to them or whatever else. Like, just even being that 30 minutes for someone in that day can be huge and leave a lasting impact. If they're not hiring right now, I mean, they could think of you down the road, or they might open up a role right then and there for you, right? That they were like, you know what, it is time. Like, I forgot how much I enjoyed meeting with you, and that you get it, and you know what you're talking about. You know our business. Like, yeah, we could tackle this search right now, because sometimes hiring managers feel overwhelmed at the thought of interviewing for a new role, right? And that's kind of what I learned. And so when you meet with them and you kind of dig and figure out where they're at, they're reminded, like, oh yeah, I have a great recruiting partner. Like, we can get going on this now because they're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah. And Clark, I think if you're just texting and sending an email these days, you're missing the boat. I think so few people today actually call to have a real live conversation. It actually has become more of an anomaly and kind of like a novelty for someone to actually place a call. I had a client tell me once, I won't meet with anybody until they call me and actually spend the time and the effort to leave me a voicemail and tell me a little bit about themselves and what they can offer me. Said if they continually email me, I just hit delete. I want to hear the voice. I want to hear the person behind it. And I want to understand a little bit about that person and what they can bring to the table for me. So what I say is don't underestimate, while we're saying don't underestimate face-to-face, don't underestimate the power of the phone and your voice and talking to people versus email where people can delete you right out.
And if you get your LinkedIn going with some content and make a profile, a sales
Yes.
marketing page, leave a voicemail. Hey, shot you a message on LinkedIn, a post that I thought you might, get them back to where you need them, where you want them to be and to live. And I'm having a few clients have a ton of success actually leaving a voicemail because they've really leveraged their LinkedIn. So you have the omni-channel approach that's working hand in hand, that's aligned. So it's a
Yeah.
great time to do it. And people might not pick up the call, they might screen you out because it's a random number to them, but that voicemail they'll pay attention to, or the text piece of the voicemail, right? They'll see your name and all that. Get really lazy like I do, and I just look at the transcript and get them back to your LinkedIn where you want them to be. So all this stuff kind of works hand in hand.
Yeah, you're right. Multiple touch points because we don't know which touch point is going to do the trick, right?
Yep, exactly. So we got
Okay.
create trust and show gratitude. I'm obviously a big one. Everyone wants that trust, and obviously trust is earned over time, can be broken very quickly. But yeah, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah. So, I think in staffing recruiting, we sometimes can have that short term mentality. And I think if we always approach it with a mindset of like, I may not work with this prospect for, a year, or I may not be making money today off of this current customer because I haven't learned their process or I haven't quite figured it out, but eventually I will be patient. So I think having that mindset of, this, we're in this for the long term. Candidates become clients, clients become candidates. This is a career. This is not something that we're just doing, kind of as a drive by. And to Clark's point, always, delivering results, under promising, over delivering. If it's something that you feel you can't do, don't do it. Right? Staffing companies, at least I know where I work, we're notorious for, hey, let's just
Yeah.
sign it up. We'll figure out how to go and manage and deliver to this global account, kind of, piecemeal as we do it. And usually what happens is you tend to do a lackluster job. Hopefully you don't completely fail, but a lackluster job. And the client ends up with a pretty bad taste in their mouth. So it's much better. They got a lot more respect for you if you're able to say, hey, here's what I can't do. Here's what I can do. This particular recruiting company over here can help you better with this. They're going to have so much more regard and respect for you if you're just honest with them, and and don't sign up for things that you can't do. And along with that too, the gratitude piece. I think Clark, you and I would totally agree with this. Thank you is two words that people in life and in business just don't hear enough today. Make sure that they understand that they're important to you. You appreciate the opportunity to work with them. You appreciate the partnership that you build, and show that gratitude. Right, whether it's verbal, whether it's through building the relationship, whether it's through a thank you card. Make sure they understand it. Everybody needs appreciation, and it's something today that I think so few people actually get, but they crave it.
I love that one. You covered all these wonderfully. The gratitude piece, I do it all the time with my best clients that work and operate and commit to working with me the way that I need them to agree on in the beginning. I tell them that, I wish I could have, 10 more, 10 more Rachel Brown, 100 more Isaacs, like all the above, like, and I tell that directly to them because I appreciate their partnership and they make my job easier. They make it easier for me to come through for them, just with how they operate and how they work. I let people know that, like, it is like people feel good hearing that, and it's also the truth. Like if they haven't earned it, maybe I don't say it, But luckily, I work with some great clients. But the reason is I tell them how to be great clients. Number one, and I tell them when they're behaving that way. It's not it doesn't have to be anything crazy other than that. And people sometimes just don't know, right? Because they don't know your other 20 clients that you have or whatever you have, right? They just know you working with them. So, yeah, it's a huge, huge piece.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Let's recap this. We got one more question, but we'll recap. So, what makes your client continue to choose you over the competition?
Okay. I think you could probably whittle it down to a few things, right?
Yeah.
And add here, Clark, what you think as well. We're going to continue giving them value and giving them results, right? All this all this won't matter if we're not delivering candidates, right? But
Yep.
assuming we do that, we give them results and give them continual value. Being reliable and being easy to work with. We talked about that. Reliability builds trust. And again, being likable, being honest, being straightforward, and being trustworthy, admitting it, owning it when we mess up, because it's going to happen. We're only human, right? And showing, I think, a sincere interest in their business, in them personally, and in the success of them in their role in their business. Once they, I think, see that we've invested the right amount of time, care, and effort into making them successful, it makes them want to work with us and make us successful, right? It's kind of like what goes around comes around type thing.
Yeah, and you'll inspire them to give more referrals and talk highly about you. When you're not there and all that to departments, right? You think about hiring managers, right? There's department meetings or leadership meetings, right? Or how are you going to hire here? It's like, oh, you got to go talk to Kim, right? Like I'll introduce you, right? Like just think through those things and all these things. If you knock those out, with results being number one, I mean, it's going to be game set match in terms of getting more business from them, getting more referrals, more market share. So, great stuff. So we'll do the old thank you here again. Make sure to check out digitalrecruiter.io, also cobaltcompass.solutions.com. You got to contact Kim via email, me via email, on LinkedIn. Book calls with us, ask us questions. If you're looking to kind of just level up your sales, your recruiting game, whether with traditional or digital methods, we're here to help. So,
Absolutely.
it's no one does it alone in this industry. So, we know it's all about timing. So hopefully this was valuable. I know it was for me. It kind of reminded me to do some things myself a little bit better. So, which is why I like doing these things. So we got Shamila had a question. Thank you guys. Well, you're welcome. Just started IT staffing. Any tips for getting clients? Uh, Bold. IT is super competitive, right? You're competing internationally. Get that LinkedIn profile going, leverage some automation, figure out value, listen to the live that Kim and I did at the end of June, turning cold outreach into client meetings. That's going to be one that's going to be really helpful for you to get clients. Again, pick a niche, pick target accounts, talk to candidates, get to know the candidate market. And you just got to hustle, right? You got to get volume, you got to get reps. You're going to hear a lot of no to get to that yes. It's a grind, but once you get there, it can be really worth it.
Yeah, it will take time. Do not get frustrated. It could take you, many, many months to years plus to land certain clients. Be
Yeah.
patient.
You had a story for us, so we'll wrap it up with the story.
Okay. You've heard Nielsen Media Research, right? The Nielsen
Correct.
ratings
Yep.
people. Okay.
Yeah.
They were a large account for me in the late 1990s. And you ever heard on the news in the late 1990s? Remember there was that Branch Davidian David Koresh guy that would, set the building on fire and was firing at the FBI and all that. And it was
Yeah.
big news. So anyway, I went on vacation and came back, and no excuse. Long story short, we placed a convicted felon. She was a Branch Davidian in the Waco compound, firing at the FBI, and she'd just gotten out of prison but she was also an IT QA individual. And she got placed at Nielsen Media Research, and I had to call them and explain, hey, we just have a convicted felon that just got out of federal prison, that got placed here. We had to break down our process. So net went out there and kind of explained, here's how it happened, here's why it happened, no excuses. We're going to go and exit her off of assignment and basically try to put in a process to make sure something like that would never happen again, because she was again, she had just gotten out of federal prison
for the Waco incident.
Yes, she was in the Waco incident, inside firing at FBI. Yeah, she was inside. So it was. Grant, she did her time and all that, but the way our contract, long story short, was structured with them, that we were not, they were not accepting, I guess, folks, even though they had gotten out of prison, that were convicted felons for various federal type of crimes, and that was a federal crime. So again, net bad situation, but you own it, you fess up to it. We broke down in terms of our process. Here's what we're going to do to make it right. So just one of those ones.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I know there's been a few documentaries and stuff written about that. That was an interesting incident, to say the least. I'm not going down any rabbit holes on that one right now. But Kaylin has a question. I'm sorry if I missed your answer, but is this being recorded, and will there be a link to access? Yes, it is recorded. It'll be on both of our profiles, and it'll be on the Digital Recruiter YouTube channel. Don't go placing. Make sure people submit and clear their background check before you place them, is the moral of the story. I happen to be a few times in light industrial skilled trade staffing, so no judgment here, Kim. It happens to the best of us. It's a rite of passage if you do this long enough. But this was great. You have a ton of knowledge and insight, as always, and wisdom and experience. So it's super fun. There's a ton of value here. Study this one and the one we did in June for a couple hours, and you'll get a lot more new clients, a lot better, and more clients from more roles from your current clients. So this is great. I'm sure we'll do it again. We got to pick a topic. If you have ideas for a topic, shoot us a message. Let us know. Reshare, like, comment, all that fun stuff, so we can get this out there and help more recruiters. But that's all I got. How about you, Kim?
Yeah, please reach out. Feel free to reach out to Clark or myself if you have any questions or any follow-on thoughts or anything that you want to discuss. We're happy to help. We're here, and we team together. So thanks for inviting me in, Clark, and thank you to all the attendees for coming and kind of sharing your insights with us as well. It's been great to kind of get to know you, and don't be a stranger as we move forward. Please reach out.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, until next time, that's all we got. Have a great one, guys. Right.